Welcome to the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast, where guys that want to build muscle come to learn how to do it properly. We understand that there's more to building muscle than mindlessly throwing weights around and chugging mass gainer shakes. We're not interested in quick fixes or anabolic assistance. We're interested in mastering the art, science and skill set required to stack on real muscle and strength. My name's Andy Clements, and for the last 12 years I've devoted my life to figuring out how guys like us who don't have amazing genetics, don't have 5 hours a day to spend in the gym, and don't want to take steroids as a shortcut can build insane amounts of muscle and strength in weeks and months, not years and decades. This podcast is the result of all the lessons I've learned along the way, and it will give you the blueprint to building more muscle in less time. To get you started, head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week workout plan. Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Muscle Building Mastery Podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. My name's Andy Clements, and today we're going to talk about something that is a really popular topic and a topic that I'm really looking forward to sharing with you, and that's tips for bulking. And in particular, I've got 3 of my top tips for bulking. If you guys are going through a bulking period with your training right now, if you're trying to build size and stack on real mass, then I've got some short but hopefully really valuable tips for you to take into your training, into your nutrition, into your lifestyle to help you build that mass and carry on your bulking in the best way possible. So without further ado, the first tip that I've got for bulking is to focus on muscle weight, not just weight in general, right? Because a lot of us, and me included a few years ago, we think about bulking and the first thing that comes to mind is putting food away, right? Just like putting food away like it's our jobs. And this is what I used to do. I used to put food away like it was my job, right? When I was in my bulking phase, I was like, right, okay, I'm not dieting anymore. I don't care about the abs. I want to get big. I want to get strong. I want to get insanely like just muscular, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just eat everything in sight. That's what I used to do. So I was like, I'm going to put food away like it's my absolute job. So what I did was I just started eating, and I was like, sometimes I tracked my calories, sometimes didn't, but like I was eating like north of like 4,000 to 5,000 calories some days, and it was just like food upon food upon food upon food, because I was just like, my mentality about bulking was I need to put weight on. That was it. I was like, I need to gain weight. That's going to help me get muscular. That's going to help me build the mass. That's going to help me do this bulk that everybody says that I need to do. So that's what I did. I put food away and I ended up getting incredibly heavy, the heaviest I've ever been. But I got incredibly fat as well. You know, don't get me wrong, I wasn't like I didn't have a gut out here or anything, but you know, I still look like a train, and I still did gain some muscle, but I accumulated more fat than I ever had in my life. Like, I've never been a fat guy. I've never been a naturally fat guy. I've always been a naturally skinny guy. But by doing this bulk, I accumulated so much body fat that I was like grabbing it with my hands. I was like, oh my God, like I've never had this much body fat on me in my life. And I think I probably accumulated a lot more body fat than muscle, because I was just putting food away like there was no tomorrow, you know. So that obviously bothered me a little bit. Like, I was like, oh man, I'm just getting fat here. And so my mindset suffered from eating all these different kinds of like not ideal foods, like junk foods and stuff like that, because I was just trying to eat the stuff that would get the calories in, because trying to eat 5,000 calories of like chicken and brown rice isn't gonna happen, right? Because you're just going to be there all day. So I was eating like less than optimal foods. I was eating junk foods that was like suffering my mindset. My health suffered, my sleep suffered, and I generally just, like, my experience of life went downhill a little bit as well, because I was just so focused on this bulk. I was like, get all the food in. Not only that, but when it came time to diet, when it came time to, you know, try and reveal the hard work that I'd been putting in over that time that I was bulking, when it came time to diet, I was so out of shape, I was so overweight, so like fat basically, that it took me 17 weeks of hard dieting without a single cheat meal to get back in shape. 17 weeks. That's more than 4 months of hard dieting. That's like more than a third of a year right, of hard dieting without a single cheat meal to really get back in shape and get back to where I could see my abs, I can see some sort of vein, some sort of separation of the muscles and that kind of stuff that we like to have in mind as a goal physique, or I like to have in mind as a goal physique, and I guess that you guys do too, right? So that was what happened to me, and you know, after going through this entire process and sort of thinking, God, like I spent an entire year you know, bulking, and then the rest of the year trying to cut the fat that I just accumulated off. And I didn't know if I was any further forward, and I was a little bit frustrated by this, and I was a little bit annoyed. So I kind of sat thinking about it for a little while, and I thought, because I knew how to diet, I knew how to do a slow, steady, decent diet where you don't diet all your muscle off, right? But the epiphany that I had was, what if I did a bulk the same way that I did a diet, like slow and steady, 1 to 2 pounds a week max. You don't want to be going crazy with your changes in your weight, because when you diet, you that's what I've always done, and what I've taught my clients to always do, is you diet slow and steady, because you don't want to diet all your muscle off. You don't want to crash diet right down. You just want to get 1 or 2 pounds a week off, and you want to diet the fat off, not the muscle off, right? And so I thought, what if we just did that in reverse? And what if we just like put 1 or 2 pounds a week on, and we put the muscle on in primarily, rather than just accumulating all this fat, right? And just change this classic conventional wisdom of bulking means ramming food down your throat at as much volume and as fast speed as possible, right? So that was the idea I had, and what I ended up doing was, as I'm gonna like expand on for the rest of this podcast, is I ended up implementing that way of eating while I was bulking, or I was putting my size on, rather than trying to take body weight off when I was in my diet phases. And when I did that, I noticed that I started to accumulate more muscle than fat. Now, when you're going up in weight, and you're going up in weight consistently over a long period of time, you probably are going to accumulate a little bit of fat, and you've got to be okay with that, and I was okay with that. But I would say, like, primarily, I was accumulating much more muscle than fat when I started to bulk in that structured way, like just basically the reverse way of what you would do when you were dieting your fat down, right? So I started to accumulate more muscle and fat, which was awesome. And when I combined it with the other 2 tips that I'm going to give you now, my physique just exploded, and I didn't get fat, and my mentality was better, and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going to move on to that in a minute. I'm going to talk about tip number 2 now. Tip number 2 for bulking, my top 3 tips of bulking, is using strength as a feedback tool. Now, this is one that not many people do, and I didn't do for a long time, and I ended up just completely thinking that strength and the gym and all that sort of stuff was separate, like a separate thing to bulking, because like I said before, my idea of bulking was ramming food down my throat. It's like eat and eat and eat, right? I just thought that bulking was about eating as much as you possibly could. So I ended up staying stagnant in my training, because I was not paying attention to it. I was just doing the workouts. I just thought you just walk in, train what you feel like training, and then walk out, and then eat as much as you can. Right? that was my philosophy. So I ended up staying stagnant in my training, and then as a result, I ended up staying stagnant in my body. My body wasn't growing. I was just accumulating all this fat, and like I've just gone through that before. Like I was accumulating this fat, and I wanted to build mass, but I seemed like I was just accumulating fat, and I didn't know how to fix that. So I put the first thing into place that I've just told you about, where it was reverse dieting, basically, like putting your calories up really slowly and just accumulating 1 to 2 pounds a week of weight, which are primarily, hopefully, muscle, right? But I combined it with this, because it occurred to me one day, what if strength could be a feedback tool that you need to build muscle? Now let me explain what I mean by that. If you start logbooking your lifts, if you start logging your strength in the gym, so if you get a certain amount of weight on a bench press, for example, for a certain amount of reps, and you start writing that down and becoming aware of it and placing your attention, your awareness on that, and then you start progressing those lifts over time without changing your diet, so your diet's exactly the same, right, and you start progressing those lifts over time, what happens then is when your lifts eventually get stagnant, and you which will inevitably happen, right, if you're not changing anything in your diet, and you're not changing anything in your lifestyle, if you're doing the same workout plan and you get to a certain point when your lifts stagnate and you reach like a plateau, what you can then do is you can add some food in to your diet. So you can then, you reach your plateau and you reach your sort of genetic potential, or whatever you want to say, at that particular calorie intake, that particular body weight, and then you add some food in. You add 100 or 200 calories a day, whatever it might be, and then what's going to happen then is, as your body weight starts to creep up and you have more resources available to you from the extra food that you've added in, your strength will then start kicking up a gear again, right? So you can use strength as a feedback tool of when do you need to add calories. So rather than just using the scale, like your body weight, which is a good feedback tool as well, but rather than just using the scale, actually using your athletic performance in the gym, that's when you start getting really deep, right? So let's go back to the example of the bench press again. So if you're benching whatever it might be, 80 kilos, 90 kilos, 100 kilos, 60 kilos, doesn't matter. So if you're benching 80 kilos, for example, for 5 reps, right? And then the next week you get 6, next week you get 7, and the next week you get 7 again, and you can't get past 7 reps, what you might need to do then is add a little bit more food in. And then what you might notice the next week is you come back and you get 8 and you get 9, and then you can add 90 kilos on the bar, and then you get 100 kilos on the bar, and then you stagnate again, and then you might add another bit of food in, and then you can push the weight up, yeah? So, there's always going to be a bit of a ceiling at some point that you reach with that, but what you can do is you can push through those sort of glass ceilings where you'll stagnate for a little bit, which might happen 3 or 4 times in a row by adding more food in. So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up logbooking my lifts. I was like, right, I'm going to religiously logbook all my lifts, and I'm going to add more food in when I start stagnating. And I noticed my strength started to creep up, and as a result of my strength started to creep up, obviously I could use more weight and I could apply more mechanical tension to my muscles, and as a result I grew faster, much faster, because strength is a massive part of helping you to build muscle. And that's what happened to me. I ended up building muscle much faster as a result of me being more intelligent with when I increased my food and not just ramming it in like a dumbass meathead like I used to be, right? So that's what I ended up. And again, I started to accumulate more muscle than fat as I was increasing my food intake. So those two first tips combined, they were huge for me in terms of building muscle rather than fat in my bulking periods. But there's one more tip in my top 3 that, and there's others, but these are the top 3. If you apply these top 3, trust me, everything will change for you. If you apply those first 2 combined with what I'm about to tell you right now, everything will change for you in your bulking periods, trust me. Right, so tip number 3, I've built enough anticipation now. Tip number 3 is to nail your recovery. Now, I know that's not sexy. I know that's not something that, will sell many magazines or will farm in many likes on Instagram or Facebook or these social media, right? But it is so important if you seriously want to build muscle. If you're serious about building muscle, this is where you need to place your attention. The first 2 things that I've already mentioned about focusing on muscle weight, not just weight, and using your strength as a feedback tool, combine that with nailing your recovery, you will transform your physique like nothing you've ever seen before, right? Because let me tell you about how I discovered this. I used to believe that muscle building was all about training and nutrition and absolutely nothing else whatsoever. That's what I used to believe. I used to think, well, as long as you train right and you eat right, that's the only things that matter, right? And that's what everybody else seems to think as well. Still today, mainstream conventional wisdom kind of tells us that, oh, it's just training and nutrition. Like when you look through the bodybuilding magazines, or you look through the bodybuilding websites, or you go on YouTube, or you go on Facebook or Instagram or anything like that, everything seems to be directed at, this is how to train, this is how to eat, and everything else seems to be like, well, who cares, right? But it's not like that whatsoever, right? Training and nutrition are a massive part of it, but there's a whole other 50% that people ignore, and that's why they hold themselves back. And this looking after your recovery is a huge part of that extra 50%. So I used to believe that 50% I've just talked about, the training and nutrition, was the whole game, right? And I was so wrong. And as a result, I ignored all of my recovery mechanisms. I slept terribly. I ate junk food, right? And I didn't look after my mindset. I didn't get sunlight exposure. I didn't look after my body as an organism, right? As a living being and living creature. I didn't look after myself. I just abused myself in the gym and then rammed food down my neck, right? And it was completely the wrong way to go about things. So the big epiphany that I had with this, as I came across a guy called Mike Israetel, and I've not followed him for a little while. I think he's probably still out doing his thing, but he's a doctor of something. He's got a PhD in something or another. I came across him on a podcast, and honestly, I can't remember which podcast it was on. It might have been on Tim Ferriss, it might have been on Ben Pakulski, it might have been on somebody like that, right? But it was on somebody's podcast, and I heard him interview, and I was like, this guy's making a lot of sense. Talking about training, talking about nutrition, talking about recovery, talking about all these different things, right? To do with muscle building and strength building and stuff like that. And I thought, this guy's making a lot of sense. So I went on Facebook at the time, not Facebook anymore, but at the time I was on Facebook, and I went on and I followed him. And he used to post some cool tips, he used to post some cool training videos, and I was like, it's cool, yeah, like I'm learning some stuff from him. And one day, this one particular quote, and it was years ago, and it had such a profound impact on me that I remember it word for word. I remember what it looked like in its little box, and its little picture, right? The quote that he posted that I remember word for word was, train like a madman, recover like a pothead. Right? And that had such a profound impact on me, because instantly I knew what he was talking about. I was like, he's like, train like a madman, recover like a pothead. Like, wow, that was insane, right? And that completely changed the game for me. Now, what I took that to mean was, you need to train as hard as you can. You need to cause damage in the gym, right? You're not going to be. You don't want to be like a pansying about. You don't want to be a fairy in the gym. You want to absolutely go in there. You want to cause damage to your body. That's the point of training. You want intense workouts. But when you step foot outside of the gym, you want to minimize your stress levels, and you want to recover and relax as much as possible, right? In a lot of my programs, and sometimes on this podcast, I'll reference the autonomic nervous system and the fight or flight versus the rest and digest response, right? Now, when we're in the gym, we want the fight or flight response to be ramped up. We want to be stressed out. We want to be really causing damage to the body. But as soon as we step foot out of that gym, we want to completely dial down that stress response, and we want to start dialing up the rest response, right? Because these two work inversely. And if you're confused about that, then check out musclebuildingmastery.net. Go get your free workout plan, and you can look at some of the programs in there, and we could talk a little bit more about that. But just know for now that the stress response and the rest response kind of work inversely, and the more you dial down the stress response, the more you dial up the rest response, and the rest response is what helps us recover, right? And if we can't recover from workouts, we're not going to build muscle, because muscle building doesn't happen in the gym. Muscle building happens outside of the gym, through the nutrition, through the recovery, through the sleep, through the stress management, through the processes that our body goes through to repair the damage caused by training. Training is the stimulus, guys, you know? Training is the stimulus that helps us to trigger the response, the adaptive response from our body to build muscle. It's a signal to our body to repair and to grow, and the more intense that signal, the more intense the recovery has to be. But if you get the intense training with the intense recovery, you know, the more you dial both of those things up, the bigger you'll grow. Trust me, it's incredible, right? So anyway, this is the equation that I came across: the train like a madman, recover like a pothead. And I realised at the time when I read this, I was like, damn, you know, I've got the first part right, but I don't have the last part right. And the funny thing is, when you get the last part, I realised after the fact, is when you get the last part right, when you get the recover like a pothead right, the train like a madman goes up as well. Because the better your recovery is, the more resources you have for going and training harder and more intense, right? So that's what I ended up doing. I ended up starting to look after my I started researching, you know, what's the best ways to look after your sleep, what's the best ways to look after your health, what's the best ways to look after your mindset, you know, what do I need to do lifestyle wise. Started getting in sunshine more, started getting in nature more, you know, I started eating better foods, I started you know, doing all these different things to help my recovery, you know, with sleep and recovery and all these different things. And what I found was that I could train harder in each session, like I've just said. I could train more intense and cause more damage to my body in each session. But also, I built more muscle. You know, I just built more muscle. My strength went up as a result of my increased recovery, and my muscle mass just started to grow. You know, and I combined it with the first two tips that I've just told you about, you know, in the start of this podcast, and you know, things absolutely went crazy for me physique wise. I couldn't believe the amount of muscle I was building, and I honestly think that if you just implement those 3 tips in your next bulking phase that I've told you in this podcast, you will see insane results, absolutely insane results. So I hope that made sense. I hope that maybe resonated a little bit with you, and I hope that you will implement some of those tips into your next bulking phase, because I promise you, if you do, you'll see insane results with your physique. If you wanted to get a little bit more advice, you want a little bit more guidance, then I have a free 6-week workout plan available for you at www.musclebuildingmastery.net, which you can go there right now, download your free 6-week workout plan, and use it to get started either right now or as soon as the gyms reopen, whenever that might be, and the 12th of April, I think, which is less than 3 weeks time, in the UK anyway. If you're watching this elsewhere, then whatever's going on in your country. Go to musclebuildingmastery.net, download your free 6-week workout plan, and I'll see you next time on the Muscle Building Mastery podcast. If you're ready to stop wasting time in the gym and start mastering the skill of muscle building, go check out www.musclebuildingmastery.net to download your free 6-week muscle building workout plan. I have specifically formulated this workout plan to take you through the 3 stages of mastering your body, layering on a more advanced training methodology each week as you progress. That means that regardless of where you are with your training right now, this plan will push you forward and help you stack on more muscle and strength in just 6 weeks. So head to www.musclebuildingmastery.net now to grab your free 6-week workout plan.